Hi, my name is Angelina Rodriguez, and I'm reading the Bible out loud to you in a way that's easier to understand. I am in the book of Genesis, and this is chapter 41. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when one of the rivers there came up 7 cows. When out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and far, and they gazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those of the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt are up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream that night, and each of us had a dream the same night, and each of us had a dream. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard." So, for those of you who are just joining, this is the story of a cupbearer who is having the same dream as a co-worker of his. Okay, so I just got done driving for the past 2 days, and not that I don't drive, that I haven't drove a lot, but it's been a while, and I'm tired, and it's a little more difficult to read today than usual. Excuse my nails. I'm not going to make any more excuses for myself. I'm a hot mess, and I'm trying to read the Bible to you. So if you have just joined, this is a story about 2 dudes who seriously had simultaneously dreamt some really messed up stuff, and Jacob told them what the dreams meant, and one of them was a really good dream and the other one was a really bad dream, and the dreams came true exactly like Jacob said that they would. One got his job back, and the other one got killed. He got impaled by the Pharaoh. So that's what this story is about, okay? Now a young Hebrew was there, that's Jacob, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." So the Pharaoh's been trying to get people to interpret his dreams, because they're just getting crazier and crazier each night, and nobody can do it, and nobody's willing to do it, because if you give him a bad reading, he could kill you, So Joseph says, "I'll do it." Actually, Joseph says, "I cannot do it." He says, "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." So Joseph can't do it, but he knows that God can give the reading. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile when out of the river there came came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I have never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but not one of them could explain what it meant to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put in charge of the land of Egypt." I feel like I read that wrong. Let's do it again. "And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and let him in charge of the land of Egypt." Oh, I understand. He's saying that he's advising Pharaoh to find a better man that is wiser and more discerning, has more discernment, to go instead of him, or actually to rule instead of him, or at least take his advice on how to rule things. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way!" Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your word no one will lift hand or foot in Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zephanath Paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, to be his wife. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all of the foods produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the land, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt, and all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere. So even though the Pharaoh is still the Pharaoh, Joseph is going to be the fairest in the land. Everybody knows who he is at this point, and he's definitely rising in position no matter what happens or how bad things get, because a lot of bad things keep happening to Joseph, like, getting put into jail and becoming a guard, and now he's a dream. He's the same thing that got him kidnapped by his brothers and sold into slavery, which was telling what dreams mean, delivering God's messages from these visions that people have in their sleep, is what he's doing right now for the Pharaoh, and what has led him to be in a position to, save everybody in Egypt that he possibly could from dying of starvation during this great famine. So it's very intense, the ups and downs and the roller coaster rides that Joseph has being a follower of Christ, and just being really, well, Christ isn't even born yet, so he's not a follower of Christ. This gets complicated, but he is really in touch with the Father, and as anybody that follows Christ knows, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Trinity are one and the same. And even though Jesus Christ has not been born yet, the Creator had already known that he would be needed and created and sacrificed for our sins much, much later in these stories, because we are telling the story of Jacob, who is in the beginning, and it'll be many generations before Jesus Christ is born. So if you want to catch up, read chapters 1 through 42 in the book of Genesis. Otherwise, you can listen to me read them anytime you want to at Jesus is a DJ. It's all one word. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.